I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch network. There is massive, massive panic amongst Donald Trump and his co-defendants in Fulton County, Georgia. Unlike some of the other cases where Donald Trump has his lawyers representing all of the co-defendants, in Fulton County, Georgia, in this RICO case being prosecuted by Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, you have mass panic as all of the different co-defendants are asking to sever their cases or separate it from each other. I don't know this person. I don't know this person, all pointing fingers. This person did it. That person did it. It is chickens running around with their heads cut off, basically, if you're watching what is taking place in Fulton County, Georgia. It is a complete and total mess. And you know who loves it? Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. She is ready for it. She is more knowledgeable about Fulton County and Georgia state court procedure than like anybody, period, full stop. And you just watch all of these criminal defendants here just, again, making a total mess, total chaos. Watch as Michael Popok and I break this down on Legal AF. We talk about it here. I'll show you a clip of that, and then I'll talk to you after the break here. Play this clip of Popok and I talking about what is going down in Fulton County. Play the clip. Maybe just break down. There's been a lot of filings this week. Some people have filed speedy trials, severance motions, a lot going on. Try to break it down so that everybody understands what's going on here.
I think where it starts, and I did a hot take on it, I think it's going up soon, is where I tell my legal associates to start. You start with the rules. You start with the owner's manual for the court that you're in. And every court and every judge particularly has a chamber rule. That's what I call it. It's with the judge's particular rules for their courtroom. And August the 24th, a little covered, I don't think anybody covered it, Scott McAfee, the new judge, 6 months on the bench, he updated his standing order related to all criminal cases in front of him. When he first got on in February, yes, he's been on less than a year, he had a kind of a standard one. As soon as he got assigned the Trump case with the 18 other co-conspirators, he immediately updated his rule book. And if you looked at it, a lot of what we're watching now comes straight out of the things that are required to practice criminal cases in front of Judge McAfee. For instance, in his standing order, he says, if you don't want to show up at your arraignment, that's okay. I'll set a time for it. In this case, it was supposed to be on the 6th of September. And I still think certain of the defendants, on the lower tier, and those that may not have much money and don't have attorneys yet, or maybe getting public defenders, they will maybe show up for these 15-minute time slots on the 6th of September. But in the standing order for Judge McAfee, it says straight out, if you want to file in lieu of an appearance, a motion in lieu of an appearance to waive your appearance, that's fine. If you want to tell me what your plea is, guilty or not guilty in that paper, that's fine too. And so people are starting to do that. Donald Trump did it. Rudy Giuliani just did it. Others have done it. Ken Chesebro, Sidney Powell. And then some haven't done it yet because one just got out of jail because he's been sitting there this whole time because he didn't have a lawyer and couldn't make bond. And so this is quickly devolving, right? As we slide down into entropy, as we slide down into chaos. This is what happens when Donald Trump can't pay or won't pay for everybody's legal fees with bought and paid for attorneys so he can coordinate strategy. When you don't do that, which is what he's not doing apparently, and everybody's complaining about it. Jenna Ellis, for instance, who had been a huge Trump supporter, is now supporting DeSantis after she got almost her bar license pulled, and is now complaining on social media that why isn't MAGA Incorporated, the PAC, paying my legal fees and everybody's legal fees? Well, they're not. And so they're all getting their own lawyers. In fact, none of these defendants, we're going to talk later on about Mar-a-Lago, where there are groupings of defendants and co-conspirators and witnesses behind one or two main lawyers. Here, there's like 19 separate lawyers, and none of them are coordinating as of yet. Some, because this is like, I said it on a hot take, this is like crabs in a bucket trying to get out, right? And they're stabbing each other as they fight. It's every man, woman, and child for themselves. And that's what we're watching. So one group wants to go to trial and try to catch Fani Willis flat-footed. So that's Ken Chesebro, who we're going to talk a lot about today when we get to Mark Meadows, who wrote two major legal memos, if you want to call it that, pushing the fake elector scheme and the pressure campaign on Mike Pence. He said, I'm ready to go right now. And the judge says, fine, why don't you go on the 23rd of October? I'm talking about this 23rd of October, not some other 23rd of October. Like the same month that Donald Trump is already in that civil fraud case we're going to talk about later today. Ken Chesebro and Sidney Powell are going to go to trial. And rather than be caught at all flat-footed, the prosecutor, Fani Willis, and her team said, ready, we're ready. And why don't we do all? Talk about the bravado here, which I love, the brass of Fani Willis and her team. They didn't say, Judge, October? That sounds really early. They knew under speedy trial law in Georgia it was a possibility. That's why we gave her, some good-natured ribbing between this past March and when she finally got around to indicting. Where are you, Fani? You said it was imminent. Well, she had to get ready for a trial. You see how quickly things move in Georgia. It's breathtaking, the velocity. So she said, not only did she say, I'm fine with October 23rd for those two, let's do all 19, including Donald Trump. Now, of course, that freaked out the others who aren't ready, like Donald Trump. He never wants to go early about anything. He wants to go never. So his lawyers are moving to uncouple. I referred to it, if you're thinking about it pictorially, this is a 19-car roller coaster that is hurtling out of control at hundreds of miles an hour, each defendant in a car. And now some of them, like Donald Trump and others, want to pull pins and take their car off the tracks and find out where it lands. And so Donald Trump wants to sever his case away from the others to have his own personal table for one trial related to the criminal cases. And the others are like, yeah, me too. I want to do it by myself too. But that's not how a criminal RICO conspiracy is done. Each one of them is responsible for the 161 overt acts that are listed in furtherance of the conspiracy in the indictment alone. They're each responsible for each other's bad acts. So even though there's 34 counts or whatever it is in the indictment, and only a certain subset against each person, a lot of them were like, we want to sever the indictment too. We don't want the jury to know about the other bad things and counts of other people. But that is the very nature. That's why she brought a conspiracy case and a RICO case to boot. So that should not fly. I think this case gets separated, but not the way any of them anticipate. I think it's just going to be like basically cut down in the middle if they can. It'll be like 9 here and 10 there, unless there's a courtroom big enough to hold all 19. And then I think it's going to be that. That's one group. Then the next group want to run to federal court. And we're going to talk about how badly that is going for Mark Meadows. If he is the test case, if he's the canary in the coal mine, it is going terribly. The canary has died. Do not run to federal court because Fani Willis is waiting for you there also. And she is loaded for bear. And she's ready to put on her mini trial and cross-examine you if you're stupid enough to take the stand. All of this, though, to back up from what I originally said, Ben, starts and ends with Judge McAfee's rules. And some people might be saying, and I'll turn it over to you on this one. Some people might be saying, God, Georgia criminal procedural law is so different, so alien, to use something we talked about earlier today, than criminal law in federal court. And you're right. In federal court, there's a hearing about everything. You don't like the order of the judge, you ask for a hearing. You don't like the brief somebody filed, you ask to file another brief. And everything is done in this kind of fashion. We've had a dozen hearings in Mar-a-Lago. We've had 2 or 3 already in Jan 6 with Judge Chutkan. You know how many hearings we've had in Georgia already? Even though they've been arraigned, had their bond conditions set, and a trial be set? 0. 0. There hasn't been one. I don't want people to think MeidasTouch and Legal AF has fallen down on the job, that we didn't cover a hearing that happened. Scott McAfee has set bond conditions, told people what they can and can't do on release, arraigned them, set trial dates, and he's never had anybody in his courtroom yet. That is Georgia procedural law, and that is the rock and a immovable object that all of these, that vice that they are all now in, that only one person really is expert at running, which is Fani Willis. They're in big trouble.
Your analogy to the roller coaster, Popok, is so apt because if you think about it, sometimes you don't get to choose. Most of the time, you don't get to choose who's going to be on that roller coaster with you, right? But you all got on that roller coaster together. There were people in the front of the roller coaster. There were people in the back of the roller coaster. There were people in the middle of the roller coaster. And your experience on the roller coaster may be slightly different depending on which seat that you take. But that's the roller coaster right here that we have on screen. And what was so interesting as well is as you watch and you read these severance motions and you see the arguments that these co-defendants are trying to make about why they weren't on the roller coaster, it is some of the most frivolous and frankly at times kind of humorous and funny as they're trying to get off the roller coaster, the criminal fascist Rico roller coaster that they all said, hey, this would be a good ride to destroy American democracy. And now they're like, hey, I don't want to be on this roller coaster anymore. So with Sidney Powell, she was arguing in her kind of severance motion and her thing, she was saying, look, I wasn't even Donald Trump's lawyer. What are you talking about? It's like, wait, that's your argument? Your argument was that you never represented Donald Trump at any point in time. So this whole time it was like Halloween. You were just dressing up as Donald Trump's lawyer, showing up on TV when people announced that you were Donald Trump's lawyer. You just allowed them to say that. You just created the false impression like you were doing legal work on his behalf in lots of locations. So either directly or indirectly you were doing that. But that was one of her.
So wait, before you leave, you got a great photo up there. So when Rudy Giuliani and Jenna Ellis are standing there at a podium with her in the middle, who are they representing? It's either the campaign or Donald Trump personally. Who is it?
Exact. Well, that's why it was kind of laughably ridiculous argument. And then Chesborough's argument, because Chesborough invoked the Speedy Trial Act first, I guess not expecting that others were going to invoke it as well, which requires that the case be tried before November 1st. But then Sidney Powell invoked the Speedy Trial Act. And it's like, that's a disaster for Chesborough because now he's going to be, he's potentially sees himself shoulder to shoulder sitting right next to Sidney Powell in court, the release the Kraken lady, like the craziest, most dangerous criminal of them all sitting next to, and weirdest, sitting next to him. And so he did a pleading. He filed this document in court. Pull that up one more time, Salty. Never met her. Never sent an email to her. Don't know her.
Never physically met her. Never physically met her.
Never called her. Never texted her.
Romantic.
Never received. And then he talks about how he's never been to Coffee County. And a lot of the charges against her involve the theft of election data at the Coffee County office with Kathy Latham, who was the former Republican chair of the Coffee County the Republican Party. And so he goes, I don't even know these people. And Popok, to your point, that's fine for purposes of RICO. You played your part in the racketeering scheme, like in a sprawling mafia style case. It doesn't necessarily require that the mafia lieutenant in Boston know the mafia lieutenant in New Jersey. They could have their own separate turfs and territories, but they're ultimately still working as part of this common plan and scheme for the crime family. And that's what exists here. That's why I agree with you, Popok. You're going to see these two groupings. I think you'll see October trial grouping, which will be live on TV, streamed here on the MeidasTouch network, and then you're going to see a later one. There you have it, folks, too. Make sure you check out Legal AF. Have you seen the podcast before? Have you listened to it? Wherever you get audio podcasts, search for Legal AF and subscribe to the MeidasTouch podcast by searching for it as well, and subscribe to our YouTube channel right here. Just hit the subscribe button. And if you want to learn more about Michael Popok's origin story, go to patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Have a great day.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.